The horrors of war, we saw so much of it from both Iraq and Afghanistan. The IED explosions, injured soldiers, and then, of course, the funerals for those who never made it back home. And then we celebrated the homecomings of those who did make it back. We saw so many of them taking place at airports around the country, people shaking their hands and just thrilled that they survived war. But what we didn't see is what happened next. For so many of our heroes returning, they found their personal lives imploding and their families simply unable to help them. And the statistics are frankly very frightening. When you look at these stats, and this is done through the RAND Corporation, also the Veterans Administration, it is frightening. These soldiers returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, 20% have PTSD or depression. Only half of them are getting treatment. And fewer than the half getting treatment say that it's helped. Most say that the treatment has not helped. You're about to meet a soldier who returned from war with severe PTSD, but he did find help using a new type of therapy that he wants you to know about. Life was supposed to be good. Justin Lamson had survived war, had 2 beautiful boys and a loving wife, and he was home. But he was suffering with PTSD.
I couldn't get myself to feel any emotion besides anger. Every emotion always came back as anger. I became a very cold person, and I got to the point where seeing anybody cry it would set me off. It would trigger me.
Okay, we'll clean it later.
It's not a good thing when you have 2 little boys. Kids cry, kids hurt themselves, they cry.
I knew that he had changed when he came home from deployment, and it took me a good 2 years to finally convince him, you have PTSD. It's hard watching a train wreck.
Ashley didn't know how to help him.
He was having like these wild outbursts and breaking some furniture. I could tell he was just trying so desperately to get some anger out. My heart broke for him. I could see the pain, I could see the turmoil, and he was boiling over.
Suicidal thoughts crept in.
I got to my breaking point, and that to me was the only way that I had left.
A 2-week hospital stay saved his life.
I looked at pictures of both my children and my wife, and so at that point I decided that it might be better to ask for help.
He got involved in a small study to see if therapy that helped victims of domestic violence and sex abuse would also work on soldiers with PTSD. It's called Dehp therapy.
I didn't think it was going to work, but I knew I needed to try something.
It's a mind-body session that goes on. The body is actually activated in a way that it does all the work. So the person's personality is not doing it. It's not hypnosis.
Josette Solons developed Dehp therapy and has taught other therapists how to use it. A Navy captain convinced her that her therapy would work for soldiers because it had worked for him.
We think we're bulletproof. And then you come back to your family and your civilian career, and you're still running pretty hard.
Captain Craig Doyle says Dehp therapy helped him recall memories from war and process them so they didn't keep haunting him.
They're sometimes pretty buried, and you don't know what is really bothering you. Dehp helps you connect to what has happened. You acknowledge it, you see it, you understand, and it's there. It's not buried.
Many of the counselors who were part of the study were frustrated with the traditional therapies being offered.
The other vets were getting the cognitive therapy. Their PTSD was being activated so much because they're just talking about it. It was almost like stirring the pot with a stick. Their session time would be up, they would have to leave, but they didn't have the skill set to walk out the door with what just was brought up.
The initial study involved only 10 vets, each coming for 5 sessions.
Everybody coming in was suicidal. Most of them had TBI, and 2 of our veterans were homicidal. Just so angry.
That study showed a 100% success rate in treating the vets with PTSD.
They're not suicidal at all. The 2 veterans that were homicidal they're both working now, which is fabulous, and they're both helping other veterans.
Justin is one of them.
The first session, I was like, wow, this is a lot different than what I thought it was going to be. Then the next 2 sessions, they were actually pretty rough.
He was barely even out her door, and he called me and was like, this is incredible. I have never been able to feel so focused. I've never thought about things like this before. I mean, he immediately was giving it praise.
I felt something I haven't felt in a very long time. Forgiveness.
You can almost see the healing in Justin's face. This photo about a year ago, and now.
I'm at a better place than I've ever been. She doesn't have to worry about me going out and getting myself hurt or hurting somebody else.
Hi.
I feel like I'm a person now that can actually be there for my wife and my kids, and I wasn't that before at all. I see my wife cry, and I feel sad. I want to do whatever I can to make her feel better. My kids cry. She even tells me I need to stop running to them so fast.
He knows a lot of his military buddies could use the same thing.
I know probably hundreds. That's why I'm here. I'm here right now doing this with you guys, so at some point they can get the same help that I've gotten. If this was a perfect world and I can have exactly how I wanted, I would implement it into the military before you even get out.
Now, because this initial study was so small, just 10 veterans, and it was very successful, a larger study is now in the works involving deep therapy and PTSD. It's about to begin with more vets, many more vets. So if you would like information or you want to take part in this, we've posted the information to our website, fox10phoenix.com. You can go to the Seen on TV section and get all the information you need.